Yes, can you go on YouTube so they can see us live? Okay, I'm live now, so it's already starting. Okay, all right. All right, hey folks, how are you? Very nice to see everybody. We always have a little time frame when the YouTube live town halls start, where we go back to our very first one we ever had. It was, what was it? I think it was back when we were just starting the school year. And do you remember COVID was ramping up again?
Mhm.
It was 21, 22, but it was like we were back in March of 2020. Remember? It was, what was it called? Was it the Delta at the time? It was one of the two, one of the new strains. And I invited the county superintendent. So it was me and the county superintendent, Nancy McGinn. I'd never met her. So I was like, how are you? Let's go on TV, you know, like, so we sat down and we got, you know, there was all this anticipation and we hit go and it was just, the screen was just going like this.
Mm.
And our director of tech at the time, Peter, he was losing it. He was running back and forth. So anyway, we sat there for like 7 minutes with the, you know, and there were hundreds of families watching because it was all about how we were going to like mitigate with the AC systems and open doors. And remember, we were doing all that, like we were kind of like pretending to be scientists at the time, you know, like, you know, the number of particle levels in the air, you know, according to the National Association for, you know, Air Safety Standards, you know, in their report in 2017, you know, we were like doing all this live on TV. So now I always start these things kind of like that. Something, but I, you know, for all the families, my name is Diego Ochoa, Superintendent, San Mateo-Foster City School District. Super excited to be with three of my colleagues who I'm going to let introduce themselves. And this one you can with the camera.
Good evening, Pam Bartfield, Director of Curriculum Instruction.
And Pam does have a background in the theater.
I do.
I think you can tell.
I'm Justine DiMaggio. I'm the principal at George Hall.
Woo woo.
Woo woo.
And I'm Dr. Kristen Vogel Campbell. I'm one of the coordinators of special education for the Abbott Complex of Schools.
All right. Special education is in the house. I do have a joke for everybody. I made a call to my son right before we started. I said, you gotta get this started on a positive note. Okay, so here it is. You all will play along with me. Ready? All right. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Doris.
Doris who?
Door is locked. I'm coming through the window.
Oh.
Isn't that good?
That's really
So
good.
cute.
It's very unrehearsed, so we
He has
did a good job.
He has a book at home and he reads from this book. And isn't that sort of an interesting? You see how I just, that's called the segue, folks. I just did a segue.
What are we talking about tonight?
Whoa. Reading and literacy in our district. I think, you know, I wanted to tell that sort of, you know, wacky joke at the beginning because for him, my son's 8, for him, reading has unlocked all these things that he's like really interested in and curious about. And so he's in 2nd grade now, as a 2nd grader, he can just voraciously go into any book that he likes, right? Like we go to the library, I want a book on jokes. Let's go get it, right? Let's go see if this is a book you can read. Sometimes he'll pick books that are too difficult for him to read, but we'll read with him. Or sometimes he'll pick books that you say, man, I wish I could be his age and reading that book for the first time. It's that good of a book. But it started with his experience with reading. And now all of us, we have 1,000 students in this school district that have special needs.
Yeah.
Many of them are learning to read. And at your school, you have close to 500 kids out there who are learning, many of whom are learning to read, and many more in your neighborhood that are 1 and 2 and 3, and one day will become George Hall students. And Pam is a former principal, teacher in this district, but also just, you know, responsible for K-5 curriculum instruction. You've got thousands of kids, and we've been on quite a journey.
Yes, we have.
We've been on a big journey. What's your experience with that journey? Because it started July of 2021. It's been a long time. It's been almost 2 years.
I'm gonna start it with a text.
Yeah.
Because I received it. You're gonna like this.
I'd never really
And-
met you, actually. I didn't know her. I knew of her.
Yeah. Well, it's on a text. So a text that I just got the other day.
Yeah.
And it was from one of our language and literacy TOSAs, which all of our schools have one or
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
And the text came in and said, "This is from a parent I got this evening. The excitement has become the norm instead of the exception." And the parent sent a message to the TOSA just saying, "Hi, my child was so excited to tell me that they're about to start reading a new book." When he came home today with his old reading book pals. We went through it completely again at home. So go through this next book also. I hope you're having a great spring break or have a fun spring break. I'm so excited about this. So we're hearing from families of their child's excitement when they're getting their next book or when they're looking for a book. And I get these texts all the time now from our schools, not just from our TOSAs, but from our teachers. So, when we talk about the journey, that text just came in yesterday. Yeah, it's been about kids.
Yeah.
It's been about our students.
It's been about kids. And I think, at my level, I have to think about all schools. I have to think about all kids. I have to think about all systems. So I certainly have my opinion about how we started. Go back to July of 2021. What's your reflection now, almost 2 full years into it, on where we were then in July of 2021, and what we kind of had an itch that we were on the verge of doing something, but we weren't really there yet. What do you recall about that time?
Well, I remember one of the first things you and I talked about was not just your vision for what we want in our district, but your lens of equity. And I think that's in many districts that's difficult to actually see over years of trying to implement things. And I remember you said, put your seatbelt on because we're going to drive fast, but we're not going to drive out of control.
Right.
And so when I think about that journey, actually, I really remember that conversation with you because it's a lot to take on and to really think about the fact that we always were having the same students never learning how to read.
Yeah. That was the analysis I
That was the
I
analysis.
started in 2015
Mhm.
and analyzed reading. 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. Before, I didn't include the pandemic years because those years were so unusual and not comparable. I couldn't factor that in, but I could look at those other years and say, this data is actually eerily repeating itself for each school, year after year after year. And then that was the analysis I could do before I got hired. Once I was on board, I could now go in and look at actual names
Right.
and go deeper. And now I found, oh wow, these are my multilingual learner students. These are students with special needs. These are students with few economic resources. These are Black students. These are Latinx students. We need to go really deep into this. And it was, I think I recall at that time also, but we weren't alone in this. I remember one of my first emails was from a teacher at Park School who said, we really want to be trained in Orton Gillingham. And then I got an email from a teacher at another school saying, we really want Orton Gillingham. Then I started to have special education staff coming over here and saying, you need to. So we went, and that was actually one of the first. Do you remember?
That was the first thing that summer.
We put out a big advertisement, and 100 teachers from this district went to the training in summer. A 5-day training. That's huge.
5-day long training. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Consecutive
intensive.
days.
Yeah.
You did it.
I did it.
Yeah.
You were one of them.
I was one of them.
Wow. Wow. And then you go to that training and you come back, but we don't have a curriculum. You had the experience of the background and the knowledge of it, but you didn't have a resource to use to execute it. You, at the time, teacher on special assignment for language and literacy over at Beresford. And last summer we hired you as the principal of George Hall. But you had been at George Hall before.
I had.
Yeah.
I started my career at George Hall,
Yeah.
actually.
You were a teacher there.
Mm-hmm.
I was her principal.
What'd you teach?
I taught kindergarten and first
So you
grade.
taught kids how to read.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And then made my way up to third.
Yeah. Where you're still teaching kids how to read many times.
Mm-hmm.
And in the past, where you had 6 to 8 students who you knew they're still at first grade level,
Mhm.
but they've been with us kinder, first, and second. And at other schools in the district, 2/3 of the class is at first or second grade level when they enter third grade. And that's where this achievement gap would create and then build up from there.
Right.
You actually joined the district a year later, but you were in the district before.
Yeah, I was in the district from 2016 to 2021.
Yep.
Took a year
Took
hiatus.
a year
Came back and
because of me.
That's what I
mean,
heard.
a variety of factors. But yeah, just the collaboration. I
Yeah.
mean, with general education,
Yeah.
ed services, and just how robust our special ed program can become.
Yeah, and wanting, on our part, wanting to bring somebody with your background and
Mhm.
experience and knowing our place and being ready to go into the
Right.
work. You know, we have some very powerful work going on in our special education program as well. And that was a big part of our conversation is how, as you said, to go through an equity lens. To you, what does it mean to have an equity lens in this work?
It means a few things. I think initially it's always going to mean that if a student or a school needs more, we're going to give them more.
Yeah.
Right. So that's
Mhm.
And that's happening now.
and that's happening. But it also means that that we level the playing field. And one way we level the playing field is ensuring that every student's receiving high quality curriculum.
Yeah.
And then if if the student needs some more of the support or the school needs some more support, one thing that we've done with our language and literacy TOSA team is some of our schools have greater need that like you're saying, like the 2/3 of their class, they have more TOSAs there right now.
Mhm.
And so that means they're able to push into more classrooms, they're able to work with more students, they're able to target intervention more. So to me, that's what that means. But it always, when we talked about having students that are not, for years and years not achieving the level that we wanted until, which I know we'll probably talk about what we're seeing now, is that when you always have the same group of students,
Mhm.
because it was not just a mix. Like you always are going to have students that need targeted intervention. That's typical. But when it's always our multilingual learners, specifically with economic need, are always the ones that it's not the student.
And students with special needs.
And students with special needs, yeah. And sometimes, they're duly identified.
Yeah.
And so to be able to find a program or to add a program to our early grade levels that is going to, from the foundation, build and meet the needs of the students, that to me is what equity is. And then adding on.
Justine, you're a principal. You've got the demands of there's math, there's science, there's Lego, there's PE, there's music for minors, there's art, how do you prioritize literacy? What happens in that school environment around prioritizing literacy?
Yeah, I think for us, nothing happens in isolation, right? Like when they're in music or art, they still have exposure to, the mini lesson that has maybe some text attached to it. So recognizing that literacy isn't just in one chunk of the day, but it's in every aspect of our lives, and making those real world connections.
Especially math.
Mhm.
Have you seen some
Oh
of that
yeah.
work?
Oh yeah.
There is a lot of reading going on in
Mhm.
math classes.
Nothing is in isolation.
Yeah.
So
We did our summer analysis of our
Mhm.
test scores. I don't know if you recall, but
Mhm.
we showed what a third grade math test question looks like.
Mhm.
It's a
Mhm.
reading test question.
It's a reading tech.
It's both. It tests if you can read, and then it tests if you know the math content. If you can't read, you can't tell us what you know about the math content. And that was like,
Mhm.
if you remember, we went
Yeah.
over that
Yeah.
multiple times. And
Mhm.
in your role, working with school principals, working with case managers,
Mhm.
you know that you have children whose academic needs are so individualized that each has a pretty detailed plan. They call it an IEP or an individual education program. And at the same time, we want kids to be in that art lesson.
Right, absolutely.
We want kids to be there when we do Lego and to be in their 4th grade class or 1st grade class when they're being taught how to read. Help parents understand from your perspective, why is that inclusion in those general education settings so important?
Yeah, and I could go on for an extended
Please
period of time
do, please
about
do.
inclusion.
Yeah.
And I think when we're talking about giving, it's not giving students the opportunity to go into a general ed class, like by, their rights are that they deserve a seat in that classroom.
I'm glad you said that, because just checking our language,
Mhm.
thinking of it as give them an opportunity, no, that they actually belong.
But yeah, absolutely.
There is no, it's like,
Yeah.
like thinking about like, even, and I have a background as a special education teacher, and I can still catch myself using language like that. Give them an opportunity. That's where they already belong.
Exactly. And I know at George Hall, when students go into the general ed classroom with their peers and their general ed teachers, there's a desk for them. There's an allocated spot for them. They belong there. They're not an extra or an add-on. And that's what we all need to shift towards.
Yeah.
And same, I sometimes have to catch myself too, but modeling that language for case managers, for general ed teachers, working with site admin to help kind of shift the mindset and also like educate, because it's always coming from a place of education.
Yeah.
So yeah, just inclusion, it's so important for our students with IEPs, but at the same time, it's also really important for our general ed students to understand, acceptance, not tolerance, and empathy, and working collaboratively with someone who learns differently than you. So it's a really kind of magical thing when it all clicks together. And Justine, like, there's some amazing things happening at George Hall, and I know that there are some like fantastic.
I've seen them.
Yeah. And other school sites across the district. But since you're here, I want to, give you those kudos.
Yes, every other person at every other school.
Absolutely.
What about North Shoreview?
Yes.
You didn't mention. Yeah, these are educators, folks. You know how that's. We live in that space.
So, yeah.
Hey, you didn't mention my school.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but I think what's powerful about the perspective of what's already happening in our schools is take for instance in our special day class programs, we'll provide students with SPIRE, SPIRE, which is also Orton Gillingham based.
Yep. Yes, it is.
It's not PATH, which is what we use in our general education classes, but it's adjacent. It's very close to it in a lot of ways. Pam, one of the main goals with adopting preventing academic failure, PATH, as our skill-based component of our reading program. Can children with special needs, can multilingual learner students participate in PATH, and how does it help students regardless of those labels or criteria?
Yeah, we were just talking about that before we came in here. I feel really fortunate.
Oh, well,
just
now
with-
they're going to think that I knew you.
No, you didn't
I
know.
you were
We didn't
talking
talk to
about
him.
This
We
did
were
not
talking.
come up until just now.
It didn't. We were talking in my office because we're, preparing for, like, thinking about some of the things. And, I've known Kristen for a while. I've obviously known Justine for a while. For me, it's very intuitive to work with the special education department. And so right away, as soon as we were looking at the PATH program, I went over to Heather Morgan, our director. We started talking about it. I said, I know we have SPIRE, it's the same research base. It's Orton Gillingham multimodal. And so we knew we wanted a keep moving with that. But we did invite a lot of special education teachers to PATH training, and some schools are trying it out for us this year to see. We have some really good feedback around that.
Yeah.
But I would say the point of why this is, in the math world, they'll call low, how they always say the low floor, high ceiling, or the entry is because it's a structured program, because it teaches skills explicitly, because it doesn't allow you to fail a sound. You'll get until you get that. Some kids will get it, just like with AIDS, some kids will get it immediately. Some students might need a little bit more, but because it's multisensory, especially our students with any kind of learning disability, it really engages all of the motor skills besides the reading skills. And for our multilingual learners, our team, what we're doing is they still need those skills. They need to know the C makes a k sound, the A makes a A, and the T makes a T. But if your first language is not English and you don't know what a cat is, then we show a picture. Right. And we say, como se dice en español, es gato. Okay, in English, it's cat, or another language, right? And we can do a little bit of Spanish. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah, sí, gracias. I'm learning from Diego here. He knows.
Justine, you taught kindergarten. There were years where you had some kids show up and they could write their name. And they could spell it for you and tell you this is D-I-E-G-O. And if they looked at your book, they would say date. They could read a few simple words. Even starting kindergarten, you had kids who could do that, right?
Oh, yeah.
And you had kids who could not name a single letter, right? How is PATH addressing that? You have kids who are can identify letters, and then kids who, for the first time, they're encountering the 26 letters. And is it a situation where the student is learning all 26 letters? How does that actually look like in a kindergarten classroom?
Oh, I think that with the support of Jessica, who's our language and literacy TOSA, we've really created a system K2 that really meets the needs of all students. That's not, I think differentiation meets the needs of every type of student, and we're able to do that with our program and the way that we've structured our groups and our PATH block. And it's like our sacred time, right? Like, we know no specials during the PATH block. We know that everything is focused around literacy and making sure that all students get what they need in order to have the sound and all of those different vowels and irregular.
Kids are in small groups. Kids are sometimes doing work that's different based on what they're needed. So you might have one group of kids working on X activities, and pretty close to them in the same room, maybe a table away, there's a different group of kids doing something different. And PATH is designed that way, where that's going to happen in the same classroom. And you have a language and literacy TOSA, who I imagine gets into those classrooms, works with some of the kids, but also works with the teacher.
And it's all based on the data too. We do our assessments at the beginning of the year, and we make sure that what the instruction students are receiving fits where they're at, what their needs are.
Because we assess kids pretty close to the start of the year.
Right at the start, pretty much, Right.
Why is that important?
Because we want to have a baseline, right? We want to know, not just baseline, maybe that's district. Like district, we like having a baseline, we see all the schools, but for a teacher, you want to know, what do my students know and not know yet? And I would add to that, like when you're talking about, when I'm thinking about kindergarten, one of the things that's different with this program that is quite different than kind of, what we've done in the past is this program, when I said it's multimodal or multisensory, it is about knowing the letter name, but it's also about knowing the multiple sounds that the letter makes, which, some students, yes, they might pick up quickly, but it's also about handwriting that. It's also about spelling. They do, like in the kindergarten, like within the first lesson or within the first week, they're spelling words, they're doing dictation, they're reading words. Like, I know a lot of times we think reading and listening comprehension, read alouds is critical. We need to be always reading to our students. But when we want to make sure they're really strong readers, fluent readers. So no matter how old they get and they cross over to that reading to learn with grade level text, is they need to understand that when you come across words you don't know, what do you need to do? They learn spelling patterns. I mean, I think I've said this before in another meeting, but I went to a first grade classroom and all the kids were repeating or knew like the rule of the English language. I think most adults didn't know. I can't remember what it is now. But most adults, when you ask them, they're like, I didn't know. Because if you're a native English speaker, you take for granted that you knew that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But students are learning that. I think it was like, there's no word in the English language that ends in the letter V. And I bet you a lot of people, some people know it, but not a lot of people know that. But we're teaching that. So we're also teaching morphology and where words come from in K1 too.
It's so sweet to look at these 6 and 7-year-old little guys, and they're out there explaining this. Some of these kids will tell me when I go and visit, they'll just say, "Did you know this?"
Yes, they get very excited about
They
that.
get very excited about it, and I think it's sort of a reminder to us of what their capacity is. We make visits around the district. We go see classrooms. We went out and saw your school and George Hall. I mean, the instruction that those teachers are doing. I almost wish sometimes that I could somehow help our community. And by community, I mean our educators, our parents, our community members, help them to see how good the teaching is in this school district. George Hall has some of the best teaching I have ever seen at the elementary level. And you are not alone. Parkside. I mean, it goes on and on, right? I could literally list out. You have outstanding teachers. And what the very interesting part this year that's different from prior years is our visits are now falling into this pattern of we go around and observe, and we are seeing high quality teaching that looks very similar from school to school. Your program, there are best practices in special education. We don't want one school to be using best practices and another school to not be using best practices. You're working with schools across the district, right? You don't just support one school. You're at, I mean, sometimes even in a given day, you might be at 3 or 4 different schools. How important is the consistency and the use of best practice?
Well, I think tying into best practice, like Pam, you kind of defined it and Justine named it. So the differentiation piece. So differentiation is a buzzword that we've used in special education for a really long time.
Since I started
It's
23 years ago.
And seeing differentiation and like universal design for learning practices, which is best practices. And I always use the kind of, quotation marks around that. Seeing that like across the board in general education, like further supports all of our students. The continuity from classroom to classroom and special day class to special day class, one resource teacher doing the same thing as someone else, that's where we kind of bridge that opportunity gap. If we're in a Foster City school and then we are in a school in North Central San Mateo, seeing that same instruction, that's our commitment to kind of equity and providing that same high quality instruction regardless of where the student goes to school. And we've been striving to do the same thing. Like we have high quality teachers in our special day classes and resources.
And historically, you and I are special educators. Our part of the world is where historically they don't get the books. They're not invited to the training. They're not thought of in the planning. They're not included in the summer school. They're not included in the tutoring. How is this all? What are we doing to make sure that isn't happening in San Mateo or Foster City?
I mean, it's the collaboration that kind of
Mhm.
starts at like the district office level and collaboration between.
Tell them about that meeting we had. Some of the stuff is on my board.
Yeah.
You were in there.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about our extended school year for our students who qualify for
That's what we call
ESY.
summer school.
Summer school,
So-
yeah. So there's a certain set of criteria for students who have IEPs to attend extended school year, which is different from the summer school programs that are put on by Ed Services. But our two school sites, our ESY program is sharing a school site with our ELD, project-based learning summer school. And Aleda Barreto Cruz and I are collaborating on that. And the thing that was so important for her was when we were looking at how many classrooms that we needed, it was a non-starter for her to separate our programs because for too long, ESY has been on a segregated campus. And
in prior years, it was actually not where the summer school program was.
right,
Well, prior,
exactly.
prior.
Prior.
Because we were doing that a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Prior.
Yeah. Prior.
But see what I
No,
told
but
you,
you're right.
educators will always tell you
Yeah.
when something you said doesn't apply to them.
Right.
Or when something you said didn't.
No, but it
Not-
was, you're
not-
correct.
yes.
You're correct.
Yes.
But
Yes, and.
yes, because Justine's a former summer school principal.
Yes.
With
So we're
Casey
stepping all
St.
over
John.
the
No, but you're right, because prior to that, it wasn't that way. And I know I think it wasn't the COVID summer, but it was right after that where we brought Casey St. John, who's another
Yeah.
coordinator.
Yeah.
And the three of us, I would say we met all the time to develop a summer program
Yeah.
for all students. But it was, it was still hard because it was still like post-COVID, but now
Yeah.
it's,
And this year, we're
Yeah.
doing a lot of annex summer.
yep.
Yes.
So tell them about the meeting we just had.
Yeah.
So-
I wasn't there.
Well, I can.
Tell me about
So
it.
I can tell you, and you can't tell me.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of our summer school leads, with the exception of Pam,
Yeah.
were in Diego's office and talking about logistics, talking about how many students are participating, how many classrooms, talking about, the food service needs, talking about what curriculum is being used, and, transportation.
Who's running it?
Exactly.
Who's attending it?
And for it was refreshing for special education to have a seat at the table. Prior, that was not always the case.
Wait, I was there. I was like, you're talking about a different meeting. Of course
Okay.
I was that time. I was sitting in the
I
same
thought this was
spot.
some kind of, she was putting on a show.
That's okay. That's okay. But
I wasn't using the script.
and
sorry.
No,
it
but
was,
it-
it
but
was
it,
your
like-
recommendation
Yeah.
to
Yes.
include the Lego
Yes.
piece for our students attending ESY and
Yeah.
integrating that into the
Yes,
schedule.
correct.
So it's really
Oh, now I
exciting.
see.
Lego, music for minors.
Yep.
Playing outside, PE.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Our kids are going to eat. Okay, here's the rule. It can't be frozen and it can't be packaged.
Yeah.
When I go to the summer, if I see
Mhm.
anything frozen, I
Throw it
am
out.
going to throw it away.
Mhm.
If I see anything packaged, I am going to put it away. I want kids to eat food that we make for them every day. Breakfast, snack, and lunch.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think it just really tells you where we are as a district. In this one meeting, we had our coordinator of special education, our director of curriculum and instruction, our principal and special assignment for annex, our director of facility, our director of maintenance. I mean, we really had the team in there to go almost point by point, who, what, when, where, why, how.
Mhm.
And align it.
Yeah.
And our outcome, I think we're gonna see some really
Exciting.
powerful
I'm really excited.
outcomes.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
When we do these, Diego, he's off camera, everybody, Diego Perez, he's ready for parents who might have a question. Sometimes we're so brilliant, they don't have any questions for us. But at the conclusion of this, we send this out in a big communication to the whole district. So we have people, it lives online, it's not going anywhere. And that's what's so important to me about this is for our stakeholders to hear what we're talking about.
Right.
Because I want them to really understand the why. I don't know if you all noticed, but I have my Beanie Baby in the corner. Diego, it's over by you. Would you?
I love this one.
Oh my gosh.
I've told people at here that I have 5 kids. My youngest is 4 now. He's a big boy. My oldest is 19. He's still my baby. But when I play with stuffed animals at home, I always go. Like that's kind of my thing is with the kids. I make that noise. But these are very special. Tell
Yes.
parents and community members about what these are and how we use them.
Those are our Beanie Babies.
And you can't have this
You
one.
can't
This
have
one's
that
staying
one.
in my
That's the
house.
superintendent's Beanie Baby. And we use them as rewards for Footsteps to Brilliance. Our
Bilingual
at home. That doesn't require internet after you first get signed up, for books that students are reading. So I think we do like 100, but
150, 250,
250,
350,
yeah.
500.
500. And we're actually doing we should have brought the flyer, I didn't, but it's on our district website. We're doing a spring break reading challenge. That's the master Diego Perez, who's behind the scenes.
And we want them to do 15 minutes a day.
Yes, 15 minutes a day.
We don't want them to do 30 minutes a day.
No, 15 minutes a
And
day.
we don't want them to skip days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What we're trying to do is think about it this way. I talked about my son at the beginning of this. He has over 500 books in my home. I have a lot of kids. I save things. I'm a teacher, right? I don't throw, like I keep things like books, right?
Or Beanie Babies.
Yeah, or Beanie Babies. But, he can go into any one of the places we have books and just grab a book he's interested in. And we have a lot of kids here who go home and they don't have more than 5 books or 10 books. And not all they're able to read. Footsteps of Brilliance allows them to read over 1,000 books and stories. And it doesn't cost them any money. And every student has a Chromebook that we've assigned to them. And students that don't have Wi-Fi, we send them a hotspot. And students that lose their Chromebook, we give them a new one. And it's a way to build up. What I really want is I want the habit. I want kids to read every single day.
7 days a week.
Not because I love Footsteps of Brilliance. I don't own any stock in the company. I want kids to read, and not for an hour, for 15 minutes, because it's building a habit. When the child builds up their reading skill through our during the school day very highly effective teaching strategies, which our teachers are incredible, and then goes home and does an extra 15 minutes every day. When they hit the end of 2nd grade, the computer stuff goes away because they want to go get that joke book. I don't want my son reading on the computer. I want him reading books.
Right.
But he now knows how to read because he's read 500 books. Think about this. Some kids have already read 500 books. Yes. And there's always a question as to how's this really work? Our highest achieving schools on Footsteps of Brilliance in terms of books read at home, I'm going to name them for you. Lead, Laurel, Park, and Sunnybrook. What do they all have in common, folks?
Title I.
Title I. And we have a system here of community service specialists who are incredible people who do this every day to call and connect with families and help them. So you may have thought if families are economically disadvantaged, their kids won't read as much. That's not true. You may have thought if they don't speak English, they're less likely to use a program online. Also not true. Well, the parents are not at home when the kid, also not the case. So we have this, and the awesome thing about this program, it tracks how they read and when they read. So I know if they're reading on the weekend, and I check. And I think the results are powerful. We're hosting an event.
Yes.
May
The 4th.
4th and 5th. May the 4th be with you. Here, a big party here. Actually, the theme is Star Wars.
Oh, for real? Good.
So I
So
can,
it
I
has
can wear
to
my
be.
Star Trek
Yes.
stuff, right?
I think
Oh,
Star
good.
Trek goes with
Okay.
Star Wars.
Well, no, but.
Star Trek?
You want to cause it?
Ooh.
I love Star
Uh-oh.
Trek.
Drama.
This is, I'm gonna have to think about this. Diego, are we,
I can wear my Star Wars stuff.
Okay.
Reluctantly.
if you have Star Wars stuff,
Okay, I do.
we want to
I like
encourage that.
Yes,
If
absolutely.
you wear Star Trek stuff, I do have to say, I am a big fan of Star Trek. Tell me his name, the beard.
Picard.
Riker?
No. Oh, Riker, number
Yes.
1.
Yeah.
The number 2. Number 1.
Number one.
He's number 1.
Yeah.
Number 1. But that era,
Okay.
I
Next
can
gen.
go into
Yeah,
that
yeah,
timeline,
Next
because
gen.
for those that don't know, there's a whole
That's, yeah,
chronology.
I think that was a lot of our entry points. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Star Wars May the
Oh,
4th.
Jean-Luc
Yeah.
Picard,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. So,
Sorry.
yeah, no, all the
Probably,
parents know.
yeah.
Stir the pot.
But May the 4th, we're
Yeah.
hosting a literacy summit, an early literacy summit here in San Mateo-Foster City. We'll be inviting school districts from all over Northern California and Southern California to come and learn from our district, to engage with us, to push our thinking.
Mhm.
We'll be having a dinner with panels, with presentations here at the district, broadcast on YouTube. And the following day, these educators are going to come and visit our classrooms and we'll get a chance to have that, that attention, that focus to say, look what we are, to think about what we are doing, and to have our colleagues from throughout the state be able to come in. It's going to be hopefully co-hosted by both PATH and Foots of Civilians, ourselves, local partners. We definitely going to reach out to all of our partner districts in San Mateo County and in the greater peninsula area. I'm looking forward to it. And you're on the planning committee.
I know, it's very exciting.
And Diego, off
Yes.
camera.
Yes, we're planning it.
If we have any questions, Diego, send them to me. If not, I wanna close with this. I think one takeaway we can have is how we as a district have we're literally sitting around a table, and we have former teacher in this district, former language and literacy TOSA, principals, coordinators, special education background, leadership background, and it's all related to what the most important work is, which is how are we teaching kids in this school district to read and write. I think the future's bright.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.